Hi, and thanks so much for visiting my channel. Today I am releasing the first installment of my series on how to write a winning personal statement for your college applications. And today's video will specifically focus on brainstorming and how to start getting your thoughts on paper. I'll also be sharing some tidbits from my own process of writing my personal statement that got me into Stanford and several Ivy Leagues as well. I personally think that the essay is the hardest part of your application. It's where you'll be spending the most of your time because it's truly how you differentiate. There will be tons of applications with very similar statistics and activities that look like yours, and the essay is the place where you can truly shine. So I'm going to start with 5 overall tips on how to approach the college writing process, and then from there actually go into a brainstorming exercise with 3 steps that I found super helpful when I was writing my own college essays. Tip number 1, start early. There is no nice way to phrase this except that writing your college essay is hard, and it's probably the essay you'll spend the most time on in your life thus far. I sometimes fell into the trap when I was applying of trying to finish other things first, like the actual Common App application that didn't include the essay, or getting college recs. Those things are all important, but sometimes doing those first can essentially be the equivalent of empty calories, where you feel good about yourself because you feel like you're productive and you're completing something, but those things just aren't as important as your college essay. Tip number 2, your essay is not the place to resume build. Remember, they have your transcript and they have your activities. This is a place to shine a light on very important moments that aren't already covered by the application. Do not use this as a laundry list to just brag more about stuff without adding further context. Third, start journaling. The reason why writing your personal statement can be such a challenge is because most people, when they're high school seniors, have only been taught to write in academic ways. You're taught to write argumentative essays, you're taught to analyze books, but you don't really spend a lot of time writing about yourself. Writing about yourself is different. It requires you to be super reflective and introspective. It requires you to be vulnerable. And the way to get better at writing is to journal. All that matters is that it comes from the heart and that it's honest and vulnerable. Practice makes perfect. Tip number 4, ask people you know well for advice. Specifically, ask them about stories that they remember from you, words that they think best describe you, best memories with you. Why this is important is because it's sometimes hard for you to personally know what makes you different, but people around you who know you well do know those things. In this process, I was able to find a story that I ended up actually weaving into my own college application process. When I asked my parents for their opinion on me, or moments that they really treasure and remember about me, they mentioned that when I was little, something funny was that when I was really engrossed into a book, then essentially everything would just go over my head, whether it was it's time for dinner or we want to go to Disneyland. I just ignored everything if I was so into a book. And that was actually a moment that I then weaved into my college essay. My college essay was all about my love for storytelling and sharing people's stories with the world and how it helped me connect with people. So this little tidbit of when I was young and the catalyst and my early love for writing and reading came out in my essay, thanks to this exercise that I did with my parents. Tip number 5, edit over time. And this is important because sometimes you want to feel like you can just write your essay in one sitting, but a lot of research actually shows that if you start thinking about a task and give it some time to sit, procrastinate a little bit while still thinking about it continuously, you're likely to get more creative ideas. Sometimes it's really hard to be creative if you've been staring at the same thing for hours and days on end, so you want to give yourself the time to step away from that and come back at it with fresh eyes. So now I want to go into a brainstorming exercise that I personally found super helpful to hone in on the types of stories that I wanted to add into my application. So the first thing that's helpful is to just narrow down your list. You can start with the things that you know you don't want to write about. And the way to do this is essentially by taking out a list of your activities and everything that you could possibly write about, whether that's extracurricular activities, classes you liked, outside of school experiences, family experiences, really anything. And essentially for each of those activities, you want to ask yourself, Is there anything unique here about my experience that the reader can't understand just from reading the line on my paper? Do I think this is significant? Did I spend a ton of time in this? Did it impact me? Did it help me grow as a person? You essentially want to understand, was this activity important in my development as a person? So as an example, my laundry list had a ton of things. I was editor-in-chief of my high school's yearbook. I was also an editor on the school newspaper. I was on varsity tennis. I was a swimmer for some time. I had completed all the way to the advanced level in my piano examinations. I had won several pageants at the state and national level. I had worked at Baskin-Robbins part-time. I had another side job tutoring. I was a writing tutor. There were a ton of things on that application, and a ton of those things actually weren't significant. From that giant list of 10 to 20 activities, I was able to narrow it down to 3 things that mattered to me. The first was my time as editor-in-chief of the yearbook, and that was a no-brainer because I spent almost every waking hour outside of just pure schoolwork in the yearbook room, writing stories, chasing down stories, planning out the template for the book, all those different things. The second thing was my involvement in pageants because it changed my view on feminism and gave me a platform to share that view with other girls and empower them. And I thought that was a really important, unique part of my high school experience and wanted to highlight it. The last thing was my work experience as an ice cream scooper at Baskin-Robbins. And I wrote about how I learned so much there that school or practical work didn't teach me as well. There is no perfect framework for why something matters to you and why it was impactful, but those are things you know better than anyone else. Step 2. After you have your narrowed down list, you want to do something called the feelings and needs exercises, which I'm borrowing from the link below, and this framework comes from them, just a disclaimer. So you want to take your list of 3 or 4 activities that you've narrowed it down to, and essentially figure out what specific moments or stories within these activities are memorable to you. The way you do this is by setting up a piece of paper, essentially highlighting what was the situation, how did you react, what were challenges you faced in it, how did you feel after it, and why did you feel that way. Essentially, this is helping you unpack what are the small moments and stories within each of these larger activities that are worth talking about because they had a lasting impact on me. In addition to specific activities, don't be afraid to think about family and personal events as well. Sometimes these can be the most powerful. In fact, in my own essay, what came out of this exercise that I ended up using was a memory of me being in kindergarten when I had just moved to the United States and didn't speak English. I found that I felt so isolated because I couldn't connect with my peers around me. And the way that I bridged that was by reading as many picture books as possible, ones that weren't even assigned to me, so that I could learn the language faster. And from there, I found that it was lovely to be able to connect with my peers because of stories. And that's kind of what led to my journey into wanting to write about other people's stories and share them as well. This was a personal event, not something that I achieved in school, but it would help the reader frame my interests and my passions because they're coming from a genuine place. The next part, are there any unique circumstances? And what I mean by this is sometimes there's things in your application that you think might need explaining. For example, you might have been a star student one year and then there's a huge dip in your grades and then it, comes back up your senior year. And maybe that was because of something that was going on in your family or something that was just really unexpected that an application reader otherwise wouldn't know. I would encourage you to think through these things and see if any of them might be worth talking about. That being said, there is a fine line between sharing these things and coming off as trying to share a sob story to get into college. There's a good way to do it and a bad way to do it. My friend who is a college admissions officer for Stanford essentially said that there was a student recently that she admitted that did not have the best stats or the GPA, but in their essays wrote beautifully about what it was like growing up as an orphan and how he had to hustle for everything he had in life. And because it was done well and thoughtfully, the admissions committee admitted that person. Last but not least, off to the races, start writing. Start drafting things and don't feel a lot of pressure with these drafts. Oftentimes it's hardest to just start writing, but use all these activities and moments and just start writing. And don't worry so much about grammar, tone, or all these things. Just make sure it's honest and comes from your heart. This is the best place to start piecing together all the different things that you've come up with in this brainstorming process and start building out your essay. Writing college essays can be a really tough experience, but at the same time, it's a good time to reflect and learn more about all the things that you've accomplished in your young life so far. Thanks so much for watching, and please subscribe and share your comments below if you have any questions.